MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Raman Anamaraju, the host of the MedBix Webcast. No, I'm not Albert Einstein, but I'm pretty good. so we have I'm not in general fan of technology, but I'm a fan of blockchain technology, and particularly this guest is a great friend of mine. This guest, blockchain technology is immutability. It's a power of the mathematics inside. It's like a consciousness. It is everywhere. You cannot specify where it is. It is everywhere. It's based on a very the mathematics behind the blockchain is solid. Is the hash functions they call. It is a very solid. You can build the entire technology on that basis. You can really, the former president Reagan used to say, trust and verify. This is the blockchain technology. It does that exactly. You can trust it, but you verify at the same time. So let me bring the CEO of technology, Sunil Cherian. He did a BTech in India in computer science and master's in SUNY in New York, Albany, and then he's highly qualified. He's the CEO of a Copper Wire. Let me bring him to the table. Welcome, Sunil.
Thank you, Ramana. Glad to be here.
Yes. So tell me your background a little bit to the public. I know a lot, but tell me your background, if your background a little bit, extend from what part you started it, how you ended up in the Copper Wire.
Thank you. I came to SUNY Albany to do my master's after finishing computer science and engineering from a little college in southern part of India called College of Engineering, Trivandrum. And my first job took me to Silicon Valley in working with voice networking systems. And I have been in networking and TCP/IP ever since there. Was lucky to be part of all the dot-com boom, bust, and multiple startups. So got through a few IPOs, a few busts, and then a few years back, I got introduced to blockchain technology through a friend of mine. And we had this thesis that blockchain technology is interesting. It is being used in finance and crypto, etc. But we think that enterprises have a potential to use it. As I started digging into it, I got to meet the actual inventor of the technology, a gentleman called W. Scott Stornetta. And he and Stuart Haber in 1990 and 91 had actually published a white paper that actually talked about how do I secure a timestamp on a computer. Because if I can change the clock on a computer, I can take information that you created and date it some 5 years older, 10 years older, because I can change it. And then I can claim to be the inventor of the technology or the document or whatever we create. So the fundamental problem that he realized was because computers can be manipulated, anything that is digital can also be manipulated. So he came up with this idea that we'll have multiple copies of this in different people's hands, and we will use a form of encryption technology called hashing. And then we will create a linkage between what happens in this time period to the next time period. This idea was available for mainframes and other things, but was not really that popular until 2008 when Satoshi Nakamoto came along and said, hey, I can use it to secure money from being counterfeited. So Bitcoin has been around for 14 years and nobody has actually created counterfeit Bitcoin. So we kind of looked at it and said, hey, if it is good enough for money, what else is good enough for? So we narrowed down on the problem of trust. And trust between business networks, usually supply chains. One of the fundamental things that happens is the manufacturer or the retailer, you're selling something to the consumer. Consumer really doesn't know what's actually gone into the product. Consumer trusts the brand of the retailer, could be the hospital, could be the pharmacy, but they don't always know where it comes from, because the first tier of suppliers that provide the information to the manufacturer and the ingredients to manufacturer, they don't want to share who their suppliers are. So when you get to a tier 2, tier 3, to make a product, many times they have 5 or 10 tiers of supply chain. So because of that, there is lack of trustability in information, and we came up with some solutions to secure it while maintaining the privacy of the information that people want to protect. And that's how we came into providing tracking and tracing all the way from farms or from mines all the way to consumers, tracking any kind of information,
Let
include.
us talk, let us talk about two things in blockchain area,
Yes.
particularly related to healthcare. One
Yes.
area that I tell you, one area is the supply itself, the trust and tag.
Yes.
Particularly in the COVID pandemic, we really felt that real feeling of that masks are not there, and
Yes.
N95 masks and the supplies of all these things. It became a part of the national security problem.
Mhm.
So that is how do you that now somebody says that we are going to supply for it. There is a lot of shysters came in. They said that they have this inventory. They want to supply that. Eventually, they did not show up when the time of need and crisis. How do you address that kind of a problem in the future, or how can you prevent that kind of a system with your technology?
Right. So one of the fundamental challenges of our technology is that everybody has their own database. I have my database, you have your database. And I have to send information from my database through some kind of mechanism, could be email, could be Excel, portal, VPN. Some way I have to take this information from my side and give it to you. Your supplier has to now take it and do the same thing with their suppliers and their vendors. So every time information goes from a person to another person, that information can be changed by somebody in the middle, and they do sometimes to protect the identity of the suppliers, but sometimes they make mistakes, sometimes they manipulate. So when you talk to a big company that is manufacturing products, they typically get 80% accurate data from the first year, which people can live with. But the moment you go to the second tier, the accuracy goes down to 40%. The moment you go to the third tier, it goes down to less than 10%.
It is much more fraud kind of things pile up in the one by one.
And when you get to, like, we are helping mattress manufacturer prove to the consumers that they're actually organic. Now, when you get to the farm level, they have wool that goes into it and goes to the farmers who are actually having 100,000 heads of sheep that are free roaming. Those data, the farmers are not technically literate. So we need to make the technology easy for people, but we also need to make the data trustworthy. So how can you simplify it with trust? So with a QR code, you can actually see the information. That's the challenge, right? So I actually call this 50 shades of trust. Most people are operating on level 1 with self-reported data. How do we improve the trustability? By usually what brands do is they get somebody to verify inside the company. That's the one level up. Now you can go to next level up and have third party certifying it. But certification happens once a year or once in 2 years. So what happens in between? So you can improve upon this if every piece of data that is shared between parties, if that is signed on a blockchain, we know that nobody can change the data afterwards. That's important. So just because I am putting something out for posterity with no ability to change it, I can always add new data and that modifies, and everybody agrees that I made a mistake. That's okay. But once you have the data out there, I cannot change it. In a database, I can. Blockchain doesn't forget. It keeps the entire history of all the transactions.
So not only it keeps track of the transactions,
Yeah.
but it also keeps track of the prices, and then how that dwindling down into all the way to the another problem we have in Sunil, in healthcare is you take a Tylenol. Suppose I'm just giving an example of Tylenol. It's not Tylenol, but it happened. That one simple product like Tylenol for $12, it end up to the $400 at the end. There is a
Yeah.
lot of shysters in the middle. More shysters are there, more untrustworthy people are there. The price is skyrocketing. The
Yeah.
consumer is paying the price, And then now you see that a lot of people are complaining about the healthcare because the prices at the end is just out of reach.
Right.
So how
So
do you blockchain can prevent this kind of a, it can create a transparency? Tell me a little bit more about that, you know.
what happens is whenever you have handoff from one partner to the other, now they need to maintain their businesses and they need to have margins for that. Some people may be okay with 20% margin. Some people may need 90% margin, right? So that's how the prices change as it goes through the system. When you have a very, very opaque supply chain, it's hard to control the prices and it's based on supply and demand. If somebody needs, and supply and demand, you need to have good data. And in a supply chain, people don't necessarily have the data because it is my data versus your data, and nobody really has a single source of truth. So if you could actually create data in a way that you can share information, I can actually eliminate a lot of waste that happens. So for example, almost 40% of the food that is produced goes waste. And half of the waste happens in the supply chain. The other half happens, people take it home. We don't like food with a little bit of imperfection, right? So we don't buy it. What does the store do? They actually discard it. Now, if I knew that this food is going to go waste a week from now, and it is still good, perhaps a restaurant would be willing to buy that food cheaper rather than waiting for a consumer who doesn't like the imperfection. Similarly, there are ways in any supply chain because of these inefficiencies, you're losing 15-20% at every single handoff. That is what is creating this cost. And I'm predicting that I need 100 units. I make an order for 100 units. Now you're predicting that you need 1,000 units, and all of a sudden demand changed. That suddenly starts cascading down this entire ecosystem, and it takes months to cascade through. So we run out of stuff. I mean, hospitals are running out of syringes. Hospitals are and constantly they're running out of various surgical tourniquets. They're running out of this thing because the distributors they're working from, they don't have it in supply because somebody misforecasted.
You know, you made an excellent point. What about the shelf life? We have a big problem with the shelf lives of the medicines. So
Yes.
that, you know, they go wasted and then you can't do anything about it. But somebody knows that, then they can use that kind of the shelf life. They can use it in particularly in healthcare is a vital. It saves lives. You know, African country can buy it cheaper price, or some other third party company come down and buy it if the shelf life is going dwindling down to the last stages. That is the supply chain can give that trustworthy, that what you're saying. I think there is no other way, there is no other options available for hospitals and the supply chain companies, particularly in the healthcare. They need the blockchain. It is a vital to our industry to survive. So you're re-emphasizing that, you know, just given a excellent example about the food.
Yes.
This is much more important is the shelf life of the medicines. It saves lives, and then that we could use that kind of thing. It is really dramatically improve the quality of life everywhere.
And there are a couple of reasons why this happens. And you'll be surprised, many hospitals run out of life saving medicines, they don't have it on
Yeah.
stock, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Because from their perspective, they don't know how much to stock, they don't know what the demand is, and stuff will go bad, right? And
Yes.
many of the manufacturers and distributors, they don't know how long to give it to you for because they don't know when your stuff will get used. So often, and in some countries outside the United States, the payment cycles for a manufacturer to get paid on some of these things can be anywhere from 180 to 365 days because they're
Yes.
selling these things on consignment. They're manufacturing it and giving it to the hospital. So you pay me after you use it, but they don't know how long it takes to get used. So you're always hit and miss. And that's one of the big challenges why. So if I'm to wait a year to get paid, then my margins has to be much higher because I need to absorb all the manufacturing cost and distribution cost and the carrying cost for that long.
So what is the, so I want to talk a little bit about the challenges to implement the blockchain technology. Tell me what are the challenges involved in the traditional supply chain system transferring to blockchain technology, what it takes, and how that what kind of a turn-on system, what kind of system cover your company does. Explain to me a little bit about your company and what is your background and your team members' background, and how they can help the hospitals and hospital chain systems and supply chain companies.
Copperwire actually came together to make it easy for people to utilize blockchain technology. We believe that blockchain technology should be in the background. It should not be a blocker for people, and because they associate blockchain with crypto, you should not have a mind block as to this technology. We believe it should be just like we use a database. Like it's a distributed database, it is a trusted database where the information cannot be tampered with. Beyond that, we should just be able to use it the same way you use SQL calls. We don't worry about how Oracle or Sun Microsystems do the storing of the data and retrieving the data. We just use it. Blockchain should get to that stage. And Copperwire's mission is to make it simple for people to use and build applications that can leverage the fact that it's a single, common, shared, distributed ledger that allows people to write information onto it. Everybody else who is authorized to see the information can get that information in real time, instantly. I don't have to wait 3 months to get this information and the information is incorrect. I get the right information immediately. That is the power of being able to use applications like what we are able to create, track and trace. Whenever you put information out, everybody who is authorized to see gets that information instantly. So we make it easy for people to use this technology in order to have trustability, whether it is questions about forced labor in a network, questions about carbon emissions, questions about child labor happening, questions about water usage, environmental, social governance, supply chain data. We make sure that the data is available, it is trustworthy, and people are joining together and sharing information in ways that the network is much more powerful than any one entity.
Just you mentioned a minute ago that you're saying that you can implement this blockchain technology on the top of the existing infrastructure. You don't have to change the entire infrastructure and change in the wash and boiling system. You don't need that kind of thing. You can simply implement and put on the top of the existing system. You can start going with the turnkey system. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly. And our company was founded on the idea of being an API middleware that takes APIs from legacy systems like SAP and Oracle and mainframes, which are hard to change. And we give them APIs, and they don't need to know anything about blockchain because we are the translation gateway between them. So we provide connectors to existing systems, and they don't have to change. But now the systems are connected to the rest of the world. 90% of world's data actually lives outside the four walls of enterprise.
Yes. So people need to change the mind block about that. They think blockchain is a cryptocurrency. It's nothing to do with the cryptocurrency. It's something to do with the technology. It's a mathematical function. It's an absolutely trustworthiness is the fundamental central point for the blockchain. And then what is it? Tell me about your company and what are the team you have, and then how we can implement if a company comes to you, and how fast you can do that, and what is the process involved in that?
The company Copperwire is based out of Silicon Valley, and we were founded by a venture firm called The Fabric. And they had this idea that we can make it as easy as a company called Apigee, which is part of Google Cloud, made it easy for people to transact and do e-commerce on the web. My co-founders actually came with a background of having created the world's first and still the only stable coin approved by Federal Reserve Bank in the world. Reserve Bank of India actually approved the stable coin they created in 2016 as a digital cash product. And the reason they were able to do it because they don't have any algorithms around stablecoin. They had money in the bank in escrow, and they were creating digital cash. And there were people in rural India using it as digital cash. So we had the technical background. We brought in people with marketing experience as part of a co-founding team who built products for Oracle and SAP and VMware and things like that. And then we started applying it to supply chain with partnerships with companies like Tata. And they had been in the digital twin space. And then we find the biggest opportunity right now is in the environmental social governance area. So ESG and sustainability, there's a lot of laws happening right now. SEC is mandating every company to have some of their data available, emissions framework, etc. In Germany, the government is asking, the Supply Chain Act is asking companies of 1,000 employees or higher to follow the law or get fined 2% of the annual revenues or minimum 400,000 euro fine. India has asked a new law called BRSR, top 1,000 reporting companies on SEBI. They have to actually comply to a bunch of stringent standards. So United Nations has sustainable development goals. So there's a lot of compliance requirements happening. UFLPA came, Uber Forced Labor Prevention Act came in June of last year. It gives Customs and Border Patrol the ability to stop any product coming from anywhere in the world immediately, and they can ask questions like, show me where it's coming from. Show me the cotton shirt that is coming from China. You are not using forced labor, because 84% of Chinese cotton comes from Xinjiang region, which is known to use the Uyghur population as forced labor. And customs will keep on asking you proof until you can actually deliver that proof. So that's what's happening. And that's where we are focused on providing the trustable information across enterprise networks.
Is an excellent. What is the company website? Copperwire.com, right? Copperwire.io.
Copperwire.io.
Copperwire.io is your company. What is so thank you for joining us, Sunil. It is a final word for you. What do you want to say about your company? A little bit to give some small 2-sentence speech for our audience about your company.
Thank you. Copperwire is here to make your life easier, to bring trustworthy information from anywhere in the world and help you cooperate with other business partners so that it becomes win-win across the world. And that will allow you to have better operational efficiency and a lower cost, and will much stronger customer relationships, because people will trust your brand a whole lot better than others who might be cheating the system.
Thank you for joining. It's truly an honor to talk with you. You're a great friend. Copperwire.io. Thank you, Sunil Cherian. Thank you, CEO of Copperwire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Let me present, guys. I'm going to present the incredible mind of Srinivasa Ramanujan. That's my presentation today. Life, death, God in numbers in The Man Who Knew Infinity. There is a movie called The Man Who Knew Infinity that came out, right? So I'm going to talk about a little bit about let me so this Wuhan outbreak, during the Wuhan outbreak in the month of January, the Wuhan outbreak in Wuhan, coronavirus outbreak, everybody knows about it. World Health Organization declared emergency later on, but I want to tell you something about so we need to get the genetic sequence of the coronavirus. His name is Rao Johan. I think is Tsinghua University in a X-ray crystallography department. He's from a chair of the X-ray crystallography department. His name is Rao Ji. He's not Indian. He's a Chinese professor. He released the first coronavirus sequence. So through the X-ray crystallography, that is on January 12th, 2020, he released that sequence of the coronavirus. Immediately after that, Daniel Rapp and Dr. Wang from Austin University, Austin, Texas, University of Texas, they validated that sequence, in fact. Immediately, they went into the testing coronavirus structures, spike proteins. They found out everything about that. It is a world coordination. We made it unprecedented speed. We brought this coronavirus sequence through the very state-of-the-art technology called the X-ray crystallography. What happened after that? So this is a Summit computer. The computer genius, Sunil Cherian, is a computer man. It's the fastest computer is in Oak Ridge is in the Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I visited that place. Oak Ridge, Tennessee houses the fastest computer of IBM. It is called IBM Summit computer. It does. Do you know how laptop is a 1 million operations per second? Do you know how many operations per second it does? Summit computer, 3 quintillion operations per second. It is just a quintillion is just out of your trillion, outside, even above the trillion. Is that just beyond our imagination? So I visited actually the Oak Ridge National Laboratories, that is secret town of that's where the home of the Manhattan Project. That is so they have Summit computer was what happened during the Defense Act, Defense Civilian Production Act during the coronavirus. They ordered all the summit computer to find a cure for the coronavirus. So they ordered all the resources of the computers to be used to find a cure for coronavirus. So the coronavirus worked on this summit computer, the fastest computer on the planet, one of the fastest computers on the planet, came up with the 77 molecules it spit out in 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks to spit out took 2 weeks, sir. You may think about that. It took 2 weeks to put out the possible solution, possible treatment for possible molecules that can treat COVID-19. It spit out. It's 77 molecules it did identify. But if you go through the traditional lab, if you would not have gone through the computer system simulations, in the wet lab, it would have taken more than 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to develop a vaccine. So now with the computers, with the simulation, IBM spit out in 2 weeks the possible treatment for the COVID-19. So what is that? Why such a powerful computer took that many days? 2 weeks. It's billions of data points. It's a huge numbers. The numbers are unfathomable. I will explain to you why that the numbers are so strange. So it is out of our human mind. The reason is I need to tell you a story about that story. I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you the story. This is to tell you how we cannot wrap around the complex numbers, the huge numbers in our mind. This is a story of, let me share that story. This is from an Indian mythology story. It's actually real story, some people say, but whether it's real or not, but it's very interesting. It explains the power of the exponential numbers.
Ambalapuzha is a small town in southern India which is famous for two things: the Sri Krishna temple and Pal Payasam. Pal Payasam is a dessert that's made mostly of sweetened boiled milk and rice. According to legend, the king of Ambalapuzha was a big chess enthusiast, and he often challenged visitors to a game. One day, a travelling sage arrived at the court of the king and challenged him to a game of chess. The king accepted and asked the sage what he'd like as a prize if he won. The sage said he'd like some rice. He'd like 1 grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard, and for the number to be doubled for each square after that. So the king put a single grain of rice on the first square, 2 grains on the second square, 4 on the third and 8 on the fourth. He looked at the grains and thought what a ridiculously modest prize. He accepted the sage's wish, and the game began. The sage played well and easily won. True to his word, the king ordered a bag of rice to be brought and started to count out the grains onto the squares. He was shocked when he got to just the 12th square and found that he needed to put 2,048 grains onto it. He realized that the prize was going to be a lot bigger than it had first seemed. After a long calculation, he figured out that for the 30th square, he'd need about 536 million grains. By the 40th square, he'd need about 550 billion grains of rice, and for the last square, the 64th, he'd have to count out a staggering 9,220,000 trillion grains. Altogether, he'd have to give the sage about 18,500,000 trillion grains. A single long grain of rice weighs, on average, about 0.029 grams, so the total weight of rice that the king needed to give the sage was about 535 billion tons. That's more than 1,000 times greater than all the world's milled rice production in 2019-20. The king realized it was impossible for him to pay his debt. In the legend, the sage turns out to be the god Krishna in disguise. When he saw how upset the king was, he appeared to the king in his true form. He told the king that he didn't have to settle the debt immediately, but could pay it over time. So the king started to serve pal payasam in the temple free every day to pilgrims until the debt was cleared. In mathematics, this kind of growth is described as exponential, and as we've seen, it can give rise to large numbers very quickly. The function describing the number of grains of rice per square is 2 to the x minus 1, where x is the number of squares, and you can see from the graph how steeply it grows. So remember the legend of Ambalapuza, and if you're ever in town, don't forget to visit the temple for your free bowl of rice.
just oh my God, I went through. Jesus, I forgot that. You know, sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit, guys. I was a crazy. I put a mute my phone. It is big. This technology is really, really, really challenging sometimes. I spoke entire thing. I think after this, I'm going to talk with you. Sorry, you were listening to the. I'm going to have to go back and talk with you a little bit after this video. You watch the video. Sorry about that. It is a frustrating. I am a. It's a one-man show. What can I do? I do the best I can do. Sometimes when I'm excited, I forget these buttons. So many buttons to press. you know, Technology is good and bad. A lot of times it adds so much pressure on us. You have to learn so many systems. I was taught. Somebody was. I was saying that I have to do the editing of all the videos. It's just a unbelievable pressure. Sorry about that, but I'm talking like a madman and without microphone. Nobody told me. But anyway, thanks. Sorry for. But let me give you another example. Another example of the um, chessboard. Another example of the necklace. If you wear a necklace, uh, if your wife and you went to the parties and wear a necklace, okay, and then you come back from the party, you drop the necklace in the jewelry box. I hope you join, and sorry about this, and I am I'm extremely sorry about that. I went through almost 4 or 5 pages, 4 or 5 slides, but that's why I came back. If this the But it is worth listening to this power of the Ramanujan in the healthcare. How the guy who died 150 years ago, who profoundly influencing healthcare. That's important. That's what I want to talk with you about that. So the necklace, when you fold the necklace and then you and your wife went to a nice party, came back, and then she dropped the pearls in the jewelry box. The way it falls, the pattern it falls, you want to get back the same pattern. If she does every day for the next 1 billion years, she wouldn't get back in half the way. It's that difficult. The pattern looks so simple to us. Our human mind cannot fathom these numbers. Protein folding, for example, spike protein mutations. The protein folding is that complex. It looks like a pearl folding almost. It's a million times more complex. So think about that. The numbers are unbelievably big numbers. So 20 amino acids, life in numbers. I'm going to talk about life in numbers. 20 amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of the proteins. So 20 amino acids create huge number of life that creates the diversity. For example, if you take 20, they are the proteins. They create the proteins. The proteins are the coolies of our body. They do all the functions. So 20 to the power of 100 different locations. If you put them in 20 to the power of 100, think about the number that you see up there. It is a mind-boggling number. It is the number of the atoms in all the universe together, the visible universe. It exceeds this 20 to the power of 100 can exceed that number. Is that big number? So the diversity of life, you understand the diversity of life. The reason is that powerfully that you see the diversity of life. That you can imagine now what kind of a diversity, complexity come out of the 20 amino acids. So death in numbers, you saw all the people are dead, 7 million people dead, then 100 billion people died since the beginning of human civilization, maybe more. So it is a numbers are all humongous. We have to understand the death also along with the life. Life and death go together in that sense. So we have to kill the coronavirus. How do you they are in trillions, millions, billions. So you have to understand the numbers very well. So, but one man never afraid of the big numbers. His name is The man who knew infinity, his name is Srinivasa Ramanujan. He loved numbers. In 1887, he was born in 1887 in the part of Tamil Nadu, India, and he died in 1920. It's a very short life. But he loved numbers. He was born in a village, the small place, the home of gods and goddesses. That is the home he lived in when he was a kid, when he was studying. Um, that he has no running water, no electricity, no running water, but he was writing all those things in on the slate and the piece of papers. So he was producing a lot of mathematics. He was producing crazy mathematics. It looks like crazy for us, but it's not. He's producing a math madness. He's writing equations after equations, pages after pages of equations. He's writing. One of the equations I can share with you that you see on the right side is 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way to infinity. If we add it, the summation of that one is minus 1 over 12. That means it is not infinity. If you add the integers all the way to 1 to the infinity, the answer is not infinity. It is a minus 1 over 12. We are strange as it may seem, but it is correct in certain situations. You will come to know about it in a minute. So they asked him, how did you arrive these numbers? How did you get these numbers? So he said that God has gave it to me in the dreams. He said, what goddess? Namagiri, I have a photo, and he was showing the picture of a Namagiri photo to his supervisor in England, in Oxford, Cambridge. So he said, never mind that the Western people, that some woman in the picture gave him in the dreams all the equations. That it is out of their thinking. Is all these Western logic minds. They never mind. Sorry, we asked you, and they left. So, but listen to wait until what these greatest minds said about him. Let me say that. So Michio Kaku said that. Michio Kaku says of Ramanujan, Srinivasa Ramanujan was the strangest man in all of mathematics, probably in the entire history of science. He has been compared to bursting supernovae, illuminating the darkest, most profound corners of mathematics. The Freeman Dyson, the Ramanujan had some sort of magic tricks that we don't understand, says late Freeman Dyson of the Institute for Advanced Study from Princeton University, where Albert Einstein was a professor. The founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, about Ramanujan, with a partial math book, he did entire modern mathematics and moved the field forward. Just think if he had access to the internet. You didn't forget about technology. Ken Bono, professor of mathematics at the Emory University in Atlanta, who studied Ramanujan papers in detail, says Ramanujan's work in mathematics is the epitome of intuition. For a brief window of time, 5 years, he lit the world of math on fire. G.H. Hardy, the well-respected professor of mathematics at Cambridge and the direct supervisor of the Ramanujan, said, the most satisfying thing in my life was meeting my student Ramanujan. Think about it. A professor is telling his most satisfying thing about meeting is his student. So you understand what the glory of him, what the people set up. So you heard about life in numbers. Right? We talked about death in numbers, but I said that God in numbers. What is it? God comes to anything to do with here. We need a God to explain understanding of the numbers a little bit more. Sorry, that's a little bit of a story. It's nothing to do with the religion. A story will explain to you much easier to. There is a in the Hindu religion is one of the epic called epic Mahabharata. There is two factions. They're cousins actually. They're fighting for the land and the kingdom. It's the Pandavas and Kauravas, the two factions, opposing factions. Pandavas supposed to be good guys. Kauravas are bad guys, but they're all cousins in a way. Strangest way. So in the battle of Kurukshetra, they went to war. In the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord Krishna is the Lord God for a Hindu. So he took the main warrior of the Pandavas, the good guys, that he said that I cannot fight my cousins. I cannot kill my teachers on the other side. They were my teachers one time. They're my cousins. They're my friends. I cannot kill them. So that our Lord Krishna took him out on the side and gave a profound wisdom and knowledge about the Bhagavad Gita. The reason I'm talking about it, you will understand why I'm saying this. So he says that you're just a mere actor in the whole complexity of the universe. So I'm going to show you my divine side. I will give. I'm going to show you my multi-dimensional form, higher dimensions. So it is a multiple dimensions. We live in a three-dimensional world, length, width, and breadth, and the height. We understand only three dimensions. But anything higher dimensions, we have no idea. We cannot see it. We cannot visualize it. So he wants to show, Lord Krishna wants to show that higher dimensional form, transcendental form of Krishna. He wants to show it to Arjuna, his warrior. He wants the purpose of that is to convince him you're just a mere actor. You're already done. The karma, the laws of karma are already done. He showed that the higher dimensional form of him is omnipotent, which is unlimited powers he has, omniscient, is a knows everything. I am omnipresent, everywhere, anywhere. That's most important. Omnipresent is everywhere, anywhere, and the 11 dimensions. That's what you see everywhere, anywhere, everything, same time. The higher dimensions can give you this kind of a powers and then place invariant, time invariant things. So but you cannot see. So I'm going to bless you with a divine sight. I'm going to give you a divine sight to see my transcendental form. So he blessed the Arjuna, his warrior, the divine sight. So he can show is a transcendental form. Okay. So that's the only way that is the way that you could able to see higher dimensional form of Krishna in that sense. It's in this one past and present. What the purpose of that is, is already you killed all your cousins. You won the war. You're just a mere actor. I am the one who does this drama. You're part of the drama for me. And that's what he was saying in the Bhagavad Gita. That is a sacred text of Hinduism. It gives a lot of profound wisdom and knowledge during that time. So, but anyway, so if that's that multi-dimensional form, I'm going to talk about physics a little bit about it, that multi-dimensions. If you take a matter and you go further, divide into molecules divided into atoms into neutrons, protons, all the fundamental particles. If you go all the way to the smallest thing, so string theory suggests that there's a strings, vibrations of energy, all the electrons, protons, everything is made up of these after the quarks and everything, they're made up of strings, vibrating strings. They vibrate in 26 dimensions. Okay, that is the 26 dimensions they vibrate. That is what string theory says. But there's 11 dimensions that came out. I tell you about that in a minute. But the physics has a string theory of 26 dimensions. We only can see 3 dimensions. How can you verify? How can you see that's 26 dimensions? So what he did, I'm going to deviate for you a little bit of mathematics here. It's not a math, but I'm just giving you. I did actually show on a symmetry itself, math and symmetry groups. So a lot of times mathematicians, a very funny way, I still, it's beyond my understanding. The symmetry itself is a very complex field. But if you take any object, number of ways you can move and rotate, rotational symmetry, translational symmetry. If you're in the mirror, for example, a reflective symmetry, these are all the number of ways you can arrange an object. That is the symmetric groups. They're called groups. You can arrange all the groups. Everything that's seen in the nature, you can arrange into groups. So that is mathematicians. That's a fundamental. So, for example, the chair, the number of ways it can rotate, which axis, what axis, so you can You can add a complexities to it, and then the number of ways you can rotate the chair is you can consider that is a group. For example, a snowflake, the rotational, if you can move around, it doesn't change anything. That's a rotational symmetry. So that's only one way you can do that. But if you can change anything, it happens something else. So some of the number of ways you can put, you can the object can move around. That is a form a group. But very strange thing happened. Very, as you see that 26 dimensions, you saw that, right? There are 26 misfit groups in math. This is nothing to do with the physics. Mathematicians came up with the number, strange number. This is 26 misfit groups. They don't fit anywhere. Their bookkeeping didn't work for them. So you cannot put some of the rotations, some of the symmetry groups, they could not able to put in any groups. They call 26 groups. Out of that group, there's a big one. It's called a monster group. They have number. You see that 800, 808, 017, 1424. The number just keep going. I don't even know how do you say that, the entire thing. But the number of the monster group, the largest group in the 26 misfit groups. Remember, 26 dimensions in the string theory came. That is entirely independent from the mathematics. They came out with the 26 misfit groups came in mathematics. It came out mathematically 196,883 dimensions. Don't ask me why that number is, but that is in higher dimensions. The total dimensions, these monster group, the biggest group of all the 26 misfit groups came in 196,883 dimensions. Concord University, where I went to school, John Mackay's symmetry, he found out the monster group. So how do you see? We can only see 3 dimensions. 1 or 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions you see. We cannot see 4, we cannot see 5, we cannot see 6. But we can see through mathematics. We don't have a 96,883 eyes. We don't have it. What we have is a math. Mathematics is the eyes. That's higher vision we have. That is a divine sight. The divine sight we have, that is inside is the mathematics. To see what they do, that we have a story inside. We can feel that what they look like through the mathematics. That is the divine sight, is the he gave. So that's where the Ramanujan came in. It is as strange as it may be. He created a modular functions. Modular functions are that he combined this math 26 misfit groups into physics string theory. He connected them through his mathematics. They found out it later on. They call it monster moonshine. They connected the mathematics and physics. He connected. He wrote. He has written. The string theory was not born. The virus was not born. But he did all these things. These functions he did. Mathematical functions he gave us during his time, a short period of his life. So he combined the mathematics and physics through modular functions, they call. Okay. So he saw the real physics through mathematics and physics. He combined them. We can see. So Ramanujan mathematics are just mind-boggling. For example, Ramanujan Fourier algorithms are used in that 77 compounds came out of the Summit computer. They use a fast Fourier. This Ramanujan Fourier algorithms are the best one in the microenvironment. They can do very well. So to find a treatment for the coronavirus, they have to use something like Ramanujan Fourier algorithms together. Then Ramanujan filter banks. These are all the EEG electroencephalograph to measure. We have a lot. 80 years we didn't have much advances in the electroencephalograph EEGs. So the EEGs, to find the EEG, the location, for example, epilepsy, you want to find out. It's very impossible where the location of these epilepsy causing cells. So Ramanujan filter banks, even they can figure it out with the weak signals. They can tell us where they are located at. So that's going to be the future of mathematics. He gave this man who died 150 years ago gave the mathematics to us. Then black holes. Black holes are, he gave a entropy of the black hole. That is, mathematics are now working on in the Ramanujan mathematics helping black holes in entropy. And the string theory that I told you just now, 26 dimensions, 11 dimensions, all of them came out of the modular functions. He was explaining the string theory through mathematics. Microorganisms, virus, I told you how the algorithms can be used to detect the organisms, understand the organisms, the huge numbers, and find a solution and treatment for those. And if we don't know, a lot of people don't know this ATMs sometimes they use Ramanujan mathematics. Integer partitions are very complex. To divide the division of cache is not easy. If they use integer partitions, is still that hardware. If you have partitions in the computers on the storage, all those things you need to use some mathematics like Fourier or Ramanujan mathematics. You got to use it to find this. So he's everywhere. He died 150 years ago, but he's there. There is a lot of people. The man who died 150 years ago, inspiring so many advances, and one of the most advanced scientists are working on his theories. One is Miranda Chang of the mathematics in the Amsterdam, professor of University of Amsterdam. She's also part of the French Paris group. And then Shemit Kachru is from Stanford, whom I met. Happened to meet him. Glad to meet him. He's also working on this Ramanujan Monster Moonshine groups. And then the another one is Manjul Bhargav. I also met him. Happened to meet him. If you want to know the story, I'll tell you the story later on. But I bumped into him in Starbucks, and then I didn't know that he looked like a student in high school dropout, and he won the field medal actually. So Manjul Bhargav is from Princeton University, professor. John Duncan from Atlanta, where I'm from. So these are all they are working. The most advanced minds are working on Ramanujan's equations. So, incredible mind of Srinivasa Ramanujan, youngest to induct into the Royal Society of Fellow, where the Newton was a fellow. He died very young age. But tell me, the minds what it shows to the humanity, the show of the power of the mind that he can reach, even with the limited resources. You can, with a lamp and a slate, he wrote the equations with the advanced computers cannot catch up. So that is the power of mind. So think about that, guys. Thank you for listening. Sorry for my troubles for the meeting for 5-10 minutes. But good night, and talk with you next week. See you. We have an amazing guest next week. Thank you. I'm doing something wrong here. Sorry, just give me that.
The MedBricks webcast is focused on bringing distinguished Indians and others from diverse fields of science
Thank you. Good night. Bye.